Welcome to Drinks in the Library, the only library where drinks aren't just allowed, they are required. I'm your librarian host, Gigi Howard, and each episode I'll be interviewing a guest about a much-loved book that we will be pairing with a drink for you to enjoy along with us or consider for your next book club meetup. As always, stay curious and support your local library. Hello, Liberation Nation. Our book this week is the page-turning World War II novel, The Rose Code by Kate Quinn, set in Bletchley Park during World War II and about the code breakers that were working there to support Allied forces. My guest this week is my cousin, Christine O'Brien. She is a nurse, a wife, an avid reader, a traveler, fur mom to her dog, Hank. And another exciting thing, this is the very first virtual episode I have recorded. I had been nervous about doing it, and I finally figured out a software to use, and Christine had reached out a while back and said that she was loving the show, and if I ever figured out how to make an episode from my home in Virginia to her house in California, that she would love to come on. And I was so excited for her to do this with me. Obviously, the audio is a little bit different than what you're used to, but I think it still sounds amazing, and we had so much fun recording. And obviously, if you can make an episode with your cousin, it's just even more special. Our drink this week is a 2023 rosé of Pinot Noir. It is from Armitage, which is a winery in Scotts Valley near Santa Cruz where Christine lives. And she was so kind to gift me some so that we can enjoy this cross-country episode and cross-country drink together. And as always, if you're enjoying the show, please tell someone about it this week. Like and review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you catch your podcast. And without further ado, here is The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. Does it show you that we're recording? Okay. So I'm here tonight with my cousin, Christine O'Brien. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a wonderful Friday today.
It is. Yeah. And also I'm really excited because this is my first virtual recording ever. And you agreed to do this with me. We've already had some technical difficulties, so I'm really glad it's you going through this with me. But yeah, thank you so much, because you don't live here. Where do you live?
Yes, I live in California. I was going to say, this is actually my first podcast recording ever, so lots of firsts here, but it's been a great experience so far. Yes, I'm in California, in the Bay Area, not far from Santa Cruz, which is like a beach town, but I used to live in New York. My husband and I moved out here about almost 5 years ago, which is crazy. We moved out here saying that we were going to come out for a year and kind of venture around. And now we're here. We just bought a house. So
okay. Have you moved in? I didn't know this.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
You probably haven't heard that from my parents because they wish that I would move back to New York. So it's probably not news that they're sharing with everyone.
Maybe they'll change their minds.
Yes. Yeah. No, they like it out here too. It's just a far travel.
Yeah, I know. I keep wondering if they're going to move down here.
I know. I think they were like talking about it for a while, but only like New York born and raised. I think it would take a lot to get around it. My dad's kind of willing to explore. He also likes the warmer climates, not hot per se. And anywhere that there's golf, he's down to go.
100% true. Yes. And I'm so excited. So you're a huge reader. And we talk about books a lot. Yeah. I guess we'll just dive into what book are we talking about tonight?
We are talking about The Rose Code by Kate Quinn.
And I wanted to also ask, so we have our wine pairing, our drink pairing with it as well. Do you want to tell us about, so you live in California. Yeah. Now in Virginia, we do have we have good wine, great wine, but probably not quite the same reputation. So I did lean on you a little bit to pick out what we're drinking tonight.
I didn't go too clever with this. I did a rosé, considering we're doing the Rose Code. But there are actually a lot of good Pinot Noir. Tends to grow pretty nicely in the area that we're in. And we joined a wine club, my husband and I, called Armitage Wines. It's just like a little local winery right here in Scotts Valley where we live, and they have a very delicious rosé. So I was like, I definitely want to send this over. It's just like a nice, refreshing. I honestly feel like you can pair it with anything, like burger sitting on the couch with some chips. There's actual wine notes, and sommeliers would probably spit at that, but I'm like, I think you could drink it with just about anything. It's really just a really good and a like nice local wine that I really like.
What comes with your wine club? Like,
They send you, I think for this one, it's maybe we get 3 bottles from there every few months. But it's nice because it's a local one, so they let us actually do tastings for 4 people once a month, which is a lot. Yeah, but they have a really nice like patio area. So we've taken my parents and like your own like cheese and crackers thing.
Okay.
And just sit out and enjoy the mountains and the view. It's just like a really pretty little spot.
Cool.
Yeah, it is. It's like a nice little winery. I suggest you join if you move out here.
Oh my gosh. All our parents would just be devastated.
No, they'd be like, this is ridiculous.
California, we're East Coast people.
Someone put a stop to this.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk about the Rose Code while we sip this delicious rosé.
Yeah. You're just really set the mood.
Who were you when you first picked up this book?
I read this. I was looking back at my like Goodreads to see exactly when I read this. I think I read this in 2021. So I was out here like a year. It was like mid-COVID. My husband and I are both nurses, so we both were physically going to work, but still just a weird little isolating time. As you said, I'm a really big reader. I always have been, but I was on kind of a nonfiction kick for a really long time. Like I wouldn't really read fiction. And then I feel like this was one of the first books that I like dabbled into that I was like, okay, I think I really do a lot of fiction books. So this is like it's considered like historical fiction. I like reading to pass the time anyway. It's like one of my favorite hobbies, but there was a lot of history in it. So I didn't feel like I was completely delving into a complete like fiction book. So I felt it was a good time for me to enjoy a little bit of fiction and get into more of that world. So that's where I was at the time. I was looking for something different to read. I felt we were like trapped in the house most of the time, and I was like, I would like something with a little bit of not nonfiction.
Okay, and I think this is a really good example of that because it's like a page turner too. So tell us about the Rose Codes, historical fiction set during World War II.
Which I feel like I've read a lot of World War II books since then. There's a lot of books on them, but it's mainly based on Bletchley Park, which is an actual place where they were cracking codes, German codes mainly. And they say, I was looking up a little bit more about Bletchley Park afterwards. I had done this even after I read the book, just because I found it like fascinating. I think it was just outside of London, but they had these people there secretly, like men and women. They had a lot of women there, which I found really interesting because they obviously weren't in the war at the time, using their brains to crack German codes.
Yeah.
And they say that it helped shorten the war by 2 to 4 years, which there's no real way of knowing that, but I just found it to be pretty fascinating. Kate Quinn, I've read 1 or 2 of her other books, and she tries to really focus on the female characters and their helping history in all different wars, which is
I like that. And so we've got a few characters, and they're very different.
Yeah, the 3 main characters, Mab or Mabe, I think it's Mab, Osla, and Beth.
Yeah.
They're the main characters at the end. They come together and they are 3 completely different human beings, but they end up spending a lot of time together, and it just goes over their friendship and their love lives and their work lives. But they are definitely 3 very different people.
Yeah. Who's your favorite?
I think Osla's my favorite.
She's the fancy one.
She is. She's a little bougie, I feel. She came from the bougier lifestyle of the 3. And I feel like she's just here to have fun.
Yeah. She doesn't have as many requirements put on her, right? She doesn't have to worry as much. First thing she does is her mom sends her to Canada, and she figures out how to get back to England.
Get back.
Which is in the middle of a very dangerous war.
Yes. Yeah, her mom sends her over there specifically almost for safekeeping, and she finds her way right on back, and then decides that she's going to join Bletchley Park and try to crack these codes. So she did the complete opposite of what her mom wanted her to do.
Very similar to you.
Yes, yeah. My mom was like, you're going to stay here in New York. And I was like, nope, I'm going to find my way all the way across the country as far as I can go.
And then we're talking about Oslet. And also, I read she was based on a real person. Did you know this?
I tried to read that too because it's historical fiction, so they can't like really say. And then I had read that Beth was based on two real people. I don't know if you found out more maybe than
All
I
I
did.
know about Osla from her Wikipedia page is that, yes, so there was a woman, her name was like Margaret Osla, and she did have a famous love interest, but I don't want to, I'm going to let you spoil
Yes,
that. So her name was Margaret Osla, and she dated, can you guess who she dated?
she dated
Yes.
Prince Philip,
All right.
who then became the
Yes.
king.
And
I know, I was like, I don't know if I should spoil this one, but it is in like a majority of the book. 2 chapters in, you will figure out. She says that's who she's dating, which is very interesting.
mm-hmm.
And then they get into, obviously, he does not end up with
Right.
Osla. Yeah, but I thought that was like very interesting that that's like her like love affair during the war, and he's an active member of, I think it was it the
I think
Navy?
so.
I could be wrong.
We'll go with that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't Google it.
While she's like cracking codes. Yes. Don't Wikipedia because I'm not 100% sure.
So Osla, she's meeting Prince Philip, or is he Prince?
I think he was technically Prince because of something in his Reese line.
Okay. So how does she get wound up with Beth, and then is it Mab?
Yeah. So they all meet because Mabe and Osla are looking to rent a room when they're coming to work at Bletchley. And they end up at Beth's parents' house, which is how they meet Beth.
All right. And so we've talked a lot about Osla. Who is Mabe?
Mabe comes from, I don't think where in England, but like a much smaller, more rural part. And she definitely does not come from money as Osla does. They talk a lot about her home life a few times and her mom, which it sounds like she doesn't really have a super great relationship with. She says she's like not bad, but not great. And then her sister Lucy, who she would like to have come live with her at some point and get her out of that situation.
Yeah.
Like her real goal, she's sending a lot of her money and paychecks over the years to her mom in hopes that she can get Lucy a better life and, out of that situation.
Okay.
So she, I feel like, has a lot more riding on her than, say, Osla does.
Well, and I think that's probably, like, going back to the character, too. It is a lot easier to be a free spirit when you don't have to pay the bills. You're not worried about Lucy back home.
You're just going out to the dance.
Living it up.
Yep. Kissing Prince Philip.
Oh, man. What's the compelling thing about the story, would you say?
I feel like there's a lot of twists and turns. It's almost like there's a few storylines going on at the same time, which can be confusing. This is like a side note, but my husband's grandma is 93, I think. She's a big reader. I thought she would really enjoy this book. I brought it up to her a few years ago when I read it. She started reading it and told me that she stopped reading it because there was too many characters and too much going on. And then, oddly enough, literally last summer, she came up to me and she said, I read this book and I think you're really going to love it. And I said, what is it? And she said, The Rose Code, which was very cute. I went along with the whole thing. I said, oh my gosh, I think I did read that one. It's so good, isn't it? But there was, like, I feel like originally I could see where she was coming from, where it's like there's a lot of characters and I feel like there's a few storylines going on all at the same time.
Yeah.
But they meet Beth in her parents' house, and she is pretty much, I feel bad for her, actually. I really do. And I think they did too. And it was nice. I feel like Mab and Osla take her under their wing and are like, you're really smart and you're really capable. There's ways that you can leave this home. Her mom is pretty wretched. Mrs. Finch, I think her name is.
The worst.
Yes. I know. She sounds like she has a mean name. I was like, Miss Finch doesn't sound very nice. Yeah, but she just degrades her a lot. I think makes her feel small. And Beth then does feel very small. I think she has no confidence at all. And they take her under their wing to give her confidence and give her more like a free spirit, which I thought was really nice. That's the friendship part of their story where they all really work together. Even though they're completely different people, I feel like really have each other's backs. But yeah, their friendship, I feel like the development of their friendship and even like how they met and cool. It just shows you like how intelligent all three of them are from the work that they do. Because they all work in, I guess there's different huts at Bletchley that have different jobs. So each of them had their strengths at work in different huts. And they all came back to sleep under the wretched Miss Finch's roof together every night.
They're like, Beth, we're going to teach you how to stand up to Miss Finch.
Yes, yes. They take her out one night, they cut her hair, put makeup on her, put her in a dress, and we're like, we're going out. And she's like, my mother. And they're like, we don't care. We're taking you out of here. I was like, that's the kind of camaraderie, like girl power that I love. Beth is very good at crossword puzzles. That's how Asla and Mav were like, this girl's pretty smart.
That's all it takes.
It's
Yeah, those idiots of us that can't do a crossword puzzle, don't even try.
Don't even come to Bletchley. We're closing the gates.
Bletchley we need crossword kings here.
Yeah.
So, and would you say it's like a fast-paced story or?
Not at first. I feel like it took a little bit to pick up. I feel like the last quarter is very heavy. You find out a lot of things that you didn't know before, and a lot of the storyline really comes together because they also do past and present.
Yeah.
It's only over a course of, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years, but they talk about how they meet and when they start at Bletchley, and then 5 years later, this is after the war and what their lives are like, and then how they come together after that.
And this isn't a spoiler, it's the beginning of the story. It's the present 1947. First thing you find out, Prince Philip is getting hitched. The wedding is here, the wedding of the century.
Yes.
And Asla, how is she doing with this?
I feel like she's not taking it very well. It's also interesting too, when they talk about the present, they talk about it in terms of 2 weeks before the wedding, 1 week before the wedding, like where they are in terms of before the wedding.
Yeah.
Which originally I thought, I was like, it's interesting that this is how they're marking. Like throughout the book, you don't really understand the significance of that until later on. Present day.
Well, I thought it was an interesting way to tie it in because it sets a countdown feel to it. But also that wedding, of course, it's so iconic for the whole story of Queen Elizabeth had to ration out her ration cards in order to make her wedding dress.
Yes.
So I thought that was really interesting to tie it in and immediately draws you in because there's another thing at the very beginning is that Asla gets a code, right?
Yes. I think Asla and Mab both get a letter in the form of a code. It's from Beth. Beth. Smart crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because she knows that they're the only ones that can decipher it.
Right. So she sends it to them, and we find out immediately that Beth is now in an insane asylum. Yes.
Which that part is you don't know why she's in there.
Yeah. It immediately sets it up a little bit.
As the story progresses, you learn more about it, and it lets you know that present day, they are not as close as they once were.
I think when Mab answers the phone and Asla's calling her, she's like something like, the last person I would ever talk to, goodbye.
Yes, like literally ready to hang up the phone. I know, which is interesting. I feel like that really hooks you in, or it hooked me in at first. I'm like, okay, we started off with them meeting. They're really close. They're going out together. Now they're rooming together. They're working together. They're spending all their time together. And then present day, they get a letter that they haven't talked to this person in however many years in code. And then Asla and Mab are obviously not really speaking. So you're like, how do we get from here to here in a period of 4 years?
Yeah. What would you say is the vibe of this story when you're thinking about it tonally?
I feel like it's a little bit more on the serious side because they talk about everyone's experience, I feel like, throughout the war that has to do with the war, mainly like them working in Bletchley and then their experiences personally outside of it, which aren't all happy stories. They're a little bit more like real life.
Yeah.
And I think that had a lot of it had to do with the war.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. But I would say the tone is definitely it's not completely dark. Like there are some nice moments, but it is overall, I think the reality, especially because Bletchley Park was a real place, like the reality of a lot of people that worked there. Even they talk about the air raids in London that happen all the time that were like all over the news, and them talking about they go to London sometimes on their days off for a night out, and just the reality of you could go out for a night out and that could not turn out very well.
Yeah. going out during the Blitz.
That to me is interesting to hear because that was the reality for a lot of
Yeah.
people then during that time.
Also, so you said that you had been reading nonfiction and then you switched to this. Do you read a lot of historical fiction? Is this one of your favorite genres?
I would say it is
Mm-hmm.
now. I do really enjoy it. I've read another Kate
Mm-hmm.
Quinn, which I tried to look up a little bit about her, and there's not a whole
Oh.
lot. But she's written a number of
Yeah.
books. I read another one called The Diamond Die, I think it was. And it was about another female heroine in World War II, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, well, it seems. And then I think it was The Huntress was also set. I think it was set in World War II or sometime around there. And she's, I don't quite remember well enough, a trained assassin.
Yeah. I was going to say the girl, the Diamond Die, is like something very similar. She has the most Nazi kills, like sniper Nazi kills of any of the soldiers. And then I looked it up because it's historical fiction, but there is an actual woman who really was the greatest sniper in. So I do like her just because it brings like the female presence, which wasn't really in abundance for World War II. So it's really interesting to hear about the women that played such a huge role.
Yeah.
An important role in World War II.
Yeah. And going back to Bletchley Park, of so many of those code breakers were women that were there. And I think the attitude at the time was like, what can the women do to fight the Nazis? And it was stay home and make sure the kids are okay, make some tea.
Yep. Bake some bread.
So I do appreciate authors like this who are trying to bring out these actual stories and highlight the contributions that women made.
Yeah. So that I feel like it was a good start to my fiction journey, but especially like historical fiction, just because I like to do a little bit of, there's love stories entangled in it. We all love a good love story, or I do. But I'm like, it is nice to do a little bit of learning while you're reading.
And I do think a lot of this was definitely based on her research that she did and her trying to understand the minds of these women.
Yes. Yeah.
And I guess you already answered it. What do we know about Kate Quinn? Not much is out there.
There isn't, even on Wikipedia. But apparently she lives in Southern California.
Oh.
I don't know if she's from there though, but she was living with her dogs and her husband in Southern California from this last internet article that I saw.
So I think this is the time I ask you, would you be willing, as a Drinks in the Library correspondent, to go and find her?
And do a little interview.
like bomb her. Just like, hello.
Say, hi. Hi, Kate Quinn. I'm looking to really beef up your Wikipedia page, which you don't have one. So I'm willing to take on the groundwork for that. If you would.
She's like, hang on, you're with the podcast? Well, it's my cousin's podcast, but yes.
Okay. I'm sure she'd be very open to that.
I think it could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship and also content for me.
Yes. I might get arrested in the meantime. You should be like, this is very weird that you're...
But you're doing the work for her. She's sleeping on the job here. She's not giving us information.
I know. I was surprised because she has a few pretty well-known books at this point. I read her little Goodreads profile, and then I tried to look her up online, and I was like, there's actually surprisingly not a ton of information, which may be good for her. Maybe she likes to keep it private.
Yeah.
Maybe she just likes to sip rosé on her porch and not have anyone bother her and ask her about her Wikipedia page.
Well, guess what, Kate Quinn? That time is over.
You've met your match.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And sometimes I think for an author, they do spend so much time writing and so much time being by themselves. These are not the type of person that chooses to sit down and write for several hours a day is probably not the same person I'm going to go out I'm going to meet Hollywood's hottest stars tonight.
And interview and tell everyone what I want them to put on my Wikipedia page.
Yeah, she's probably over it. So my last question is always, who would you recommend this story to? And I also am also curious, since you read so much, what's like a read-alike for this? Do you have any that you would compare it to?
It's hard to say because I feel like I've read actually a lot of historical fiction, even in like the World War II genre. It is all very interesting, but sometimes it does tend to blend a little bit together. This, to me, stands apart a little bit just because it's not so much based on... Like, I just read a book, I think it's called The Book of Forgotten Names, which was about pretty much this girl is making fake papers to get Jewish children into Switzerland, I think. Yeah, very interesting book, but that's the premise and it's the same time frame, but it's more based on that. A lot of it has to do with you hear a lot about the Nazis and Germany, whereas this book doesn't really so much, that's what's going on, but it doesn't really focus on that. So that kind of like stood out to me. And the fact that the female characters are the main characters and they're the heroes of the book for sure.
Have you read, keep going with this, I was going to ask you, have you read The Women yet?
Is that the one by Chris and Hannah? Is that about the nurses?
Yeah. And
I did. Because I was going to say, I was like, that actually, I've read a few of her books too, and I listened to that one. That one, a few of the women that I work with also love to read. I feel like a lot of them do, but that was a big one, especially because I work with obviously all nurses. That was a very interesting historical fiction book, but she also did a lot of research because I listened to the end of it where she talked about all the research and like the people that she interviewed, and so a lot of it is fact-based. So yeah, I would actually say that's probably a pretty comparable one. Although that one's based, I feel like, more on mainly one character, although there are two others. But this one, I feel like Osla, Beth, and Mab all kind of play an equally big part in this story.
Okay. That's a good defining of it. So we can go into the other part of the question. Who would you recommend this story for? If you met somebody, who's their ideal reader that you say, you've got to read this?
I would say if you are anything like me or used to be like me, where you stick with like nonfiction, I feel like this is a good segue in because it just opens up a whole new world of books. I try to recommend, and men can read it too, but I'm like, I tried to recommend it to women because I think it is a nice, like, a lot of books are about, especially war books can tend to be about male figures. And I feel like this is like a really good one. I also feel like for people, I actually had a younger patient who was probably around my age. And anytime anybody has a book on their desk, I'm talking about books. Her and her mom were in there. We were talking about it. And she was saying that they wanted to pick a new book for their book club. And I was like, this is a book that I just read. It was really great. And I feel like it would be a good book club read because there's a lot of characters. There's a lot of things that you could talk about and you could do a whole discussion on this book. And her and her mom both read it and they both loved it. They were like, we actually want to go there and visit because you can visit Bletchley Park in London or outside of London.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say anybody who's looking for history, but also wants a little love and friendship sprinkled in there. It's a great read.
Okay. Awesome. I am really into it. And so thank you very much for suggesting it for this and also for this wonderful rosé. Loving it. Yeah. And also third for agreeing to be my first recording. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
So this is wonderful. Oh, I wanted to ask you real quick. Is there anything that you want to put like a spotlight on or anything that you're working on or into right now that you would like to share with other people? If not, no pressure, but I always try to give people that moment.
I'm currently working on decorating my house that I just bought. Furnishing that. But yeah, I think in general, my time in my new home in the Redwoods, trying to get all my family members, including you, out here to visit. The rosé was also a sales pitch to get you to come out here to try it in person.
Yeah, well, now that I know you guys have the home and everything, we'll be out. And especially, I didn't know you were so close to Lake Tahoe, too.
We're only about 3 hours. We actually went with my parents and my brothers. We both know Justin and Devin and Justin's fiance, Christian. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun.
And I'm like I'm a summer Lake Tahoe person.
Yes, that's when we went. It really was. It's beautiful in the winter and the summer, but it's a gorgeous lake.
All right. We'll definitely get to that. And thank you for repping the West Coast for us. So
yeah,
hopefully your mom doesn't listen to this and be mad at me.
I'm a West Coast transplant. She definitely will.
All right.
She did say, I've sent my parents a video of me driving into work and there's like a row of palm trees on this one road. And I sent my parents a video of it one day. And my mom said, as soon as you sent me that video, I turned to your father and I said, she's never coming back.
Oh, no.
I know. I was like, oh, Donna with the dramatics, but it is true.
Well, Donna and Paul, I love you, and I'm still here.
Yes. Shout out to you for holding it down on the East Coast for my parents with my brothers.
Oh, yeah. All right. Cheers.
Thank you for spending some time with me and my guest for an episode of Drinks in the Library. For more information about the show, you can find us on Instagram at Drinks in the Library, on the World Wide Web, drinksinthelibrary.com or shoot me an email at drinkspod@gmail.com. Until next time, cheers.